Well, good afternoon. I'm trying to sort of get back into the system of bringing the gospel. For the ones that might not know, I've been preoccupied with things that has went on in my family, and I haven't really studied the scripture as much as I'd like to say I should have done, but I left my Bible open to Romans 14. And the last message I did was Romans 14, verse 8, but without turning the page any, my eyes went down to the bottom of the chapter. And there were some words here that I believe that the Lord could anoint and the Lord could get benefit from if for even people that tune in today. Verse 22 is where I'm located. It says here, hast thou faith? Hast thou faith? Now, we don't use the word hast in today's New English. I will admit the King James uses the Old English. I believe that it's actually saying, have thou faith. But to me, if I was to say the word have thou faith, it almost would be asking a question for us today. But when you use the word hast thou faith, to me, it sort of gives indication that you look back to see when faith began. When does faith begin? Well, I think faith actually begins when someone gets saved. Paul's faith was instituted when he was Saul, when he was walking that road to Damascus, and he met the Lord along the way. So I believe he could look back to see when his faith got started is when Saul said, Lord, what would you have me to do? So I'm not trying to pick away the verse, but the verse is asking us today, hast thou faith? Well, should I quiz myself about faith? Should I quiz myself, do I have faith? You know, what is faith? Hebrews 11, verse 1 says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it, by faith, the elders obtained a good report. Faith goes along with the word grace. You're saved by grace through faith. Faith is the action word. Grace is like a message that I heard this morning. Anytime you add anything to the grace of God, you have to ask yourself, what else are you applying to the gift of God, which is grace? Maybe that might be a message that I could do at a later time to look up the words grace in the Bible. I maybe could have already done a message on the word grace, but it is so needful that maybe I might need to do it again. But this verse here says, hast thou faith? Question mark. Would it be fair game to say for me to ask the listeners out there in YouTube and on Facebook that sees this message, hast thou faith? Well, if you are born again child of God, you can say that you have faith. If you really understand what true salvation is really all about. I'm afraid, though, that there's a lot of people that don't have true salvation. I like to sort of name it like this. You could have church member salvation, but that ain't salvation. Church member salvation don't get you to heaven. Church member salvation just makes you look good in front of your peers. I can come out here and say words all day long, but only God knows the sincere innermost part of my faith. Hast thou faith? I can ask myself. It says, where hast thou, that word thou is you and I. Do I have faith? Hast thou faith? It says, have it to thyself before God. My faith might not be valuable to you, and your faith might not be all that valuable to me. You know, I was in the nursing home service yesterday, and I heard a woman say that she remembered getting saved when she was 16 years old. And you know what? I'm thankful for that, because I was able to tell that lady, if I ever had the opportunity to share the gospel to that lady's family, I want to remember the fact that she admitted that she got saved when she was 16 years old. Now, does that mean that that woman's been an ever wonderful witness from that time on? I don't know. I don't know her history. I don't know her past. I don't know the things that she's lived in the last 20 years. I don't know. But who am I to judge if that lady there remembers that she got salvation at 16 years of age? Was I there to scrutinize her life? God don't need for me to scrutinize anybody's life. My job is to simply ask the question, hast thou faith? Maybe that's the focus of this message right now. Do you have faith? Well, if your faith is not mixed in with the word grace, then chances are your faith is waning. If you can't say that you saved by grace through faith, grace is unmerited favor of God. It's a gift of God. It's something that you do not deserve. Grace is unmerited favor, unearned favor. Many people think that you got to do something to impress God. The only thing you got to do is believe that he lived and that he died and that he rose again. The gospel, the death, burial, and resurrection. That is the gospel. Anything above the death, burial, and resurrection, then you're making it where you want to include all of these other things when it ain't about the other things. It's about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's where genuine faith is birthed, in believing that he lived, believing that he died, and believing that he rose again from the grave. There's a lot of other things that we can believe in, but them are the three things that don't need to be contaminated with all of the other religious affairs. Hast thou faith? Paul was asking this. Have it to thyself before God. My faith is by my grace that God has given to me. It says here, have it to thyself before God. I can't live somebody else's faith. I can bring a message. I can do a funeral service. I can tell people the plan of salvation. But it really comes down to a one-on-one relationship. You know, what's really sad is knowing that I dumped my heart out when I did my mom's funeral. I didn't try to psych myself out of knowing every jot and every tittle that I was going to say. My hope and dream was to just get up there and share within reason of time the pure and simple gospel. Now, you know what? If somebody was to have left that service playing it down, playing that message down, it ain't my fault. Because here's what God's going to do. God's going to let that person stand before him on that day, and they're going to know that they rejected Almighty God. They belittled God. They didn't take God serious. And when God says to depart from me, I never knew you, they're going to know who it was that tried to help bring information to their life so they could receive faith. They're not going to easily forget the one that brought a message to them that they just decided to not take it to heart. How devastating do you think that would be before God to know that somebody would get up there and deliver the complete plan of salvation, and then people just play it off like it ain't no big deal? You know, there's messages that I hear all the time. I listened to one this morning that I posted on Facebook. Brother Charles talked about grace and faith, and he went into detail, and I listened to every word that he brought out, and I'm shaking my head like in awe of how he knows so much stuff. He's been in the ministry almost 50 years. I want to think that anybody that has been doing anything for 50 years, if you're a welder, you don't need someone to teach you how to weld if you've been doing it for 50 years. His faith is precious to him. The grace of God is precious to him. You can tell it when he gets up there and he starts to speak. That grace and faith is precious to him. And it's inspiring to hear someone that their faith and the grace of God is powerful to them. Happy is he that condemneth not himself in the things which he alloweth. Notice the word happy is he. Happy is he. What brings happiness? Is he that condemneth not himself in the things which he alloweth. What happens if somebody listened to the message in the funeral and decides to play it off, but yet there's no happiness in their life? Shouldn't that make somebody ask a question that there's no happiness in their life? Where is their joy at in their life? It says here, happy is he. That word happy actually means blessed. So you could say, blessed is he that condemneth not himself in the things which he alloweth. Now, part of me could say, Ken, I can condemn myself for not being in the Bible reading the last 2 weeks. But see, the thing is, my mind was on the Lord the whole time. There's nothing wrong with letting your mind be on the Lord, even if you don't open the Bible. Sometimes God will allow a person to sort of hang loose for a season. I had a horrible season that I went through, and it's going to take a little bit of time for me to get back to the reading of the Word where I can open up the Word and get something. I got something from this verse right here. Hast thou faith? I can't look at y'all to see if y'all got faith. I don't know who I'm talking to. Hast thou faith? Could that be answered by me? I have faith that Jesus lived, that Jesus died, and that Jesus rose again. And I have faith that he is in heaven and he is preparing a place for me to go when my life is over. Or the catching away comes first, either one. I'd like to be able to know that I could handle death. I don't know. I've never died. My mama sure handled it gracefully. Hast thou faith? Have it to thyself before God. Don't try to use your faith to impress people. I'm not out here to try to win a popularity award. I realize that only a few is going to click on this video. Only maybe just a few may. But what if only one looks at this verse and asks the question of themselves, hast thou faith? If only one was to question their faith because of the words that I'm saying today, wouldn't that be awesome that one person decided to question their faith? What is real faith? Real belief that Jesus lived, died, and rose again. And he's on the right hand of God the Father today, preparing that place that he prepared for my mom. Heaven was empty in the area that my mom was going to live in. I believe that the Lord got my mom's mansion already. And I believe the Lord actually come and sent one of his angels to come and get his property. And his property of the flesh is now put away. It's sort of like it's in storage. The little boutonniere that I wore on my coat made me a pallbearer at my own mother's funeral. I put that boutonniere in a plastic baggie and I put it in the middle of a book. And I closed the book and I put it on a library shelf so that that boutonniere will always stay sealed in that plastic baggie. And one day when I go through that book and I find that boutonniere, I will remember me carrying my mama's casket to her grave. Did mama have faith? Yes. Mama was saved by grace through faith, not of works of hers. She didn't earn her salvation. God gifted her salvation because of her belief and faith in grace. That grace was not mixed with the cares of this life. Hast thou faith? Have it to thyself before God. Happy is he that condemneth not himself in that thing which he alloweth. The Lord don't want me to condemn myself because I stayed out of the Bible for 10 days. Because I had the Bible inside my head. Does that give me a pass? Does it give me a pass to not come out here today 5 days after my mom's service? Does it give me a pass to move on from that time of death? Am I in the Bible today? Yeah. Will I be in the Bible hopefully tomorrow? Yeah. Is there still a certain amount of sadness? Yeah. But I have to keep going. I have to keep going because there's happiness. Is he that condemneth not himself in that thing which he alloweth. The Lord's not going to always give me a pass for staying out of his word, because if God gives me a message, he's going to want me to find his message and deliver his message. And I feel like that's what I did today. Romans 14 and verse 22. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for your word to the people today. Bless it as it goes forth. You can reach me by Elderly Ministry is the YouTube channel. elderlyministry.com is the website. You're welcome to reach out. Leave me a number. I'll be glad to get a hold of you in some form, email, a messenger, whatever. We can communicate somehow. Thank you for watching. Make sure you ask yourself, hast thou faith? Hast thou faith?